Welcome to Accessible Expeditions. I'm Becky.
And I'm Jason. Today we're going to talk about some mobility considerations when visiting Disneyland Park. We're going to go over some general considerations and some pretty specific ride information. We're not going to cover every ride, but we're going to give you the resources that you need to do for the research yourself so you can be prepared before you go.
Before you travel anywhere, you always want to start by looking at the destinations or the company's website to see what information they share specifically for their guests with disability and accessibility concerns. Disney, I have to say, is one of the better companies that we've come across in terms of accessibility and providing that information to you up front on their website. You just have to know where to look for it. This is the homepage for the Disneyland website. If you scroll down to the very bottom of the page, you will see an option for guests with disabilities. When you click on this option, you'll go to a page that has a lot of good, useful, general information. In addition to the website, a must-have is the Disneyland app for your phone. This is the starting page on the app. To get to each attraction, you click on the map and then choose Attractions. If you select any particular attraction, it will give you general information about that ride. And then if you choose the accessibility link, it shows you what you need to know regarding the accessibility for each ride.
Okay.
So the first thing to think about when you're going to Disneyland is if you don't have your own ECV or wheelchair and you need to rent a mobility device, whether you should rent it from the park or whether you should rent it from an independent vendor. So there are advantages and disadvantages to each. If the advantage to renting from an independent vendor is that they will deliver to your hotel wherever you're staying, and you can have that device to get in between your hotel and the park itself. You can take it off-site to restaurants around Anaheim. You can put it in your car and go other places in Southern California. Whereas if you rent a device from Disneyland Park itself, then you are restricted to the park area and the park hours. So you can take it to downtown Disney, you can take it in between Disneyland and California Adventure, you can take it to the Disneyland Resort hotels. You cannot go outside of that area with it, and you do have to turn it in at the end of the night. The other disadvantage is those ECV and wheelchairs. Wheelchairs not so much a consideration, but ECV certainly, they are on a first come first served basis. You cannot reserve them ahead of time, and they do rent out. Depending on how busy the park is. So if you don't get there right at the beginning of the day, you may run the risk of not having an ECV available to rent.
If you choose to rent from a vendor, you can do a simple Google search. And there are quite a few vendors in the area that deliver to the Disneyland hotels. However, Disney does have a preferred vendor. So if you're staying at a Disneyland Resort hotel, such as the Disneyland Hotel, Grand California Hotel, or the brand new updated Pixar Place, they will only allow Scooterbug to deliver to their hotels. So you'll need to use that vendor.
To give you an idea of the cost to rent a scooter, at Disneyland Park itself, you will pay $80 per day. This includes, however, a $20 deposit that is refundable to you at the end of the day when you return your scooter. For Scooterbug, you can rent for more than one day at a time, and it ends up being cheaper per day. These costs are based upon a 1-week rental. Okay, so now we're going to talk about accessibility on rides specifically. We're not going to necessarily go ride by ride in this video. We may do some additional videos in the future that do have ride by ride components to them. But some rides really have no differences in how you enter the ride. You just go through the main line, just like everybody else. And then when you get to the front, you can either transfer, get on with your wheelchair, get on with your assistive device, however the ride works. But there are some that work differently. Typically, you're going to see lines with alternate entries to get into the ride on rides that were built prior to the ADA being put in place, and that they've simply been modified to meet those accessibility standards.
Now we're going to talk about some of the rides that require return times. These are rides that the main entrance is not accessible, that they have and they'll have an alternate way for you to enter the ride, usually through the exit. when you go on a ride that requires return time, you need to find a cast member, and they're usually marked, usually at the exit. They'll scan your ticket and they'll give you a return time. For example, if the ride time or the wait time at Big Thunder Railroad is 45 minutes, they'll give you a return time approximately 45 minutes out. The idea being that you're still waiting in line at the same time as anybody else on standby, but you're doing it in a way that's more accessible for you.
So when you get a return time, it's not a window of time that you have to go back. It's not 45 minutes from now until an hour and 45 minutes from now. You can go back at any time after your return time. During the wait, you don't have to hang around. You can go on other rides, you can go shopping, you can get something to eat, you can do whatever you want to do, and just come back to the ride after the return time is there. However, you are only allowed one disability return time at a time. So you can't go to all the rides you want to go on, get your return times, and then go back to all of them. If you use Genie Plus, which is Disney's Fast Pass, or they call it the Lightning Lane right now to get to the front of the ride, you can still do this. You don't have to get a return time if you have a Lightning Lane time. It's one or the other. If you have a Lightning Lane time, you will still go through the alternate entrance, which is usually the exit, but you'll do it during your Lightning Lane time.
This does not it's not part of the Disneyland accessibility system called the DAS, which is going through some major changing in the next couple months. We will be doing an updated video when all the dust settles with what's going on with the DAS Pass. This is a list of each ride that has accessibility options that are different to get on or off the ride. Please see a cast member for each individual ride. They're usually located at a central site or at the exit of each ride. The Disneyland Railroad is accessible for both wheelchairs and ECVs. However, only 3 of the 4 stations are accessible. If you stay in your wheelchair or ECV, there's room for 1 passenger at a time in the ADA car. The stations at New Orleans Square, Toontown, and Tomorrowland are fully accessible. The stations on Main Street are not accessible, so people with mobility devices cannot get on or off the train at that stop.
The monorail is accessible for both wheelchairs and ECVs. However, there is only one car that accommodates them, and they can only accommodate 1 device at a time. So as a result, you may find your wait time significantly longer than riders that do not need wheelchairs or ECVs.
Finding Nemo. The ride itself requires you to be ambulatory. However, the stairs that you have to take to get on and off the submarine are a spiral staircase and fairly steep. So be aware that some people who typically could do it may find it very difficult to get on and off. But Finding Nemo also has an alternate experience for guests who are not able to transfer or maybe have claustrophobia. This alternate experience involves going into a special room where you can remain in your mobility device or sit on a bench and watch the same scenes that you would see out of the submarine windows, but in the format of a movie.
Star Tours is a ride that has a line inside the building where the ride itself is located, and then the ride extends outside the building and into a secondary building if the wait time is long enough. For this ride, if you have a mobility disability, you will wait in the standard line while you're outside and in the secondary building. However, once you reach the entrance to the building where the ride itself is located, they will pull you aside and have you enter through a side door, which leads to an elevator. The elevator then takes you up to the loading area for the ride, so you essentially skip the entire ride that's inside the main building where the ride is located. You will always be placed in the front row, and you'll always be the last people to enter the row. At the end of the ride, rather than going through the exit with everyone else, you'll go back out the entrance so that you can get back into the elevator and go back down to retrieve your device.
Go.
So thank you for watching our video. We hope you found it helpful, and please let us know in the comments if there's other rides or any other information about Disneyland specifically that you would like us to update on our next video.
All right. Thank you, and we hope you like and subscribe.